Hello guys, and welcome to a new Wargame video today by me, Vulcan. This is my first replay 10v10 that I get to show you today, and I'm really looking forward to showing you this one because it was a truly awesome spectacle which happened on this map Ragnarok as I played a Polish deck on the Pact side. As you can see, I'm officially here. I'm going to have to change my controls quickly because every time I do a replay on an old replay, I have to change the interface or gameplay options so that I can mouse scroll on the borders, because otherwise that catches me out occasionally. So sorry about that. Nope, we don't want to quit. Okie dokie. So here we are. We're starting with our Scott R3 and my FOB. Now the Scott R3s are the only ones I have on my deck in terms of CVs. I have seven of them on my deck, and this was a game I actually played as part of my live stream, so there was a lot of chatting going on while I was playing this. Therefore, some of my actions in this game may be a bit slower than originally intended, so please bear that in mind. So either way, you can see I start off here with an Mi-2 RO, which is really awesome Polish recon helicopters which come with exceptional optics. Now, they are the only Mi-2s that come with exceptional optics, and they are extremely useful. Here you can see I'm bringing in 8 Scott 2AMs, I believe, with Spadochriniaja at the beginning. I think this is the only Polish name I'll be able to mildly pronounce throughout this battle, so please bear that in mind. And I've also got some of these Strazalas as well, which are AA infrared missiles. So basically it's just an AA mounted on a BRDM2. So I've got 4 of them to start with as well, alongside these Scott 2AMs. And the idea of this entire strategy was to just disrupt the enemy at Nicholas. And I know it sounds very simple, but it kind of was in a lot of ways, and there is a few strategies that I've really worked out that work well now on this particular map. So to start with, you've got the middle, you've got Michael, and you can always push straight up to Elena from Michael or vice versa. On the Pact side, you can go and do what I'm doing now. You can rush to Nicholas and hold this reinforcement point here, or you can just disrupt this reinforcement point here. On the other side, you've got Leonid, in which case, if you're NATO, you can rush to Leonid and do exactly the same thing with this reinforcement point. Then either side, you've also got your big pushes that you can do with tanks and such. So it's a very versatile map, but either way, you've also finally got these 2 cities on either side. Well, they're kind of cities, they're more towns. Towns on either side of the middle sectors here. And these can be incredibly good strategic points to hold with infantry. But I'm always more of a fan of using infantry. I obviously like using tanks, but infantry is more challenging and more fun. And you probably saw that if you watched one of my first videos on Wargame Air Land Battle, where I used a British Marine deck. Now that was a very interesting game, to say the least, and definitely went better than expected. To start off with, I bring in 2 Su-7BMs. Now, these have napalm, so you can just about imagine what I'm going to do with them. I see these 2 Dornier 205s basically hovering by this town, which makes me assume that there is infantry in this town. If I go to the enemy's perspective, you can see I am completely wrong, and when I questioned myself about why I hadn't killed any infantry, that's exactly why. There is actually nothing in there. Even so, after the napalm lands, these Dorniers get stunned and seem to fly over them and get themselves panicked, so they're not going to be doing anything anytime soon. Either way, my Scott 2AMs are now coming to the field. Each of these Scott 2AMs has an ATGM on it, and look how many I have. It's absolutely crazy. Now, admittedly, they aren't accurate ATGMs, and they aren't obviously the best units to use as ATGMs because they have a terrible reload. Like, as soon as they fire one ATGM, they take ages to reload. Either way, here you can see this BRDM2 with the Strzelca AA on it starts to shoot down these Dornier 205s. Unfortunately, it misses most of its AA. But here you can see the ATGMs of the Scott 2 AMs starting to go to work on these units coming up over here. Now, obviously, again, like I say, they're not the most accurate, but we do manage to snipe a Marder Roland 2 and hit this Leopard 2 A4 in the face with one, which did basically no damage. But you can see the Spados are running across to this reinforcement point. He's already captured this sector, so I'm trying to get my Spados over to this reinforcement point as quickly as possible so that if anything is brought in to help out, I can take it out straight away with my infantry. And that was basically the idea of this entire strategy, just basically cut off the resupply point. Now, this point here, if this sector is captured, basically if you bring anything in the middle sector, it's going to come in either from back here, or if you bring it down to the front, it's probably going to come from this point. Also, on the right side, if you don't have this pool captured, then people are going to want to bring in stuff from Nicholas. Now, with my infantry there, that means they're just going to have a field day destroying anything that comes straight out that tunnel. Meanwhile, on the right side, we've got these Mi-20 Volvs with Le Patries being shot down. Unfortunately, they get absolutely annihilated by a couple of planes. But in the meantime, my Spados have also been bombed, and I've only got 4 squads left. Now, my entire force has basically been destroyed. You can see that all these Scott 2 AMs didn't really last very long against the Leopards that the enemy had in this area. Basically, this Leopard 2A4 and this Leopard 1A5 plus the Rakuten Jagdpanzers that they had. So unfortunately, there wasn't really much I could do about that, but I decided to bring in the Su-7BMs again. And well, they do some pretty nice napalm strikes. One gets shot down, unfortunately. I think both of them actually got shot down, but I do manage to destroy this CV on the left. We managed to destroy basically all of the MD Jupiters that were in this particular area, and these BGS squads get also taken out in the flames. So it was a very nice napalm strikes there, unfortunately losing both of the planes though. But the sector is still captured, so at the time I thought I hadn't caught out this CV. It was unlikely that it was going to get away from the flames, so eventually I worked out that obviously they had another CV. Either way, an Aardvark comes in to absolutely go overkill on my 4 resupply trucks with 12 cluster bombs, which I thought was a bit of a waste. But unfortunately, that kind of left my Spados without any resupply. Either way, as soon as that occurs, the enemy starts to bring in Chinooks with Delta Force and a few other vehicles as well, and hell ensues. You can see, because my Spados are so close to the resupply points, as soon as these Chinooks are coming in, they're getting immediately shot down. Now, with the Delta Force being brought out of the planes, they are slowly whittling down my Spados, along with the help of cannon fire from tanks. But after a while, they do get taken out, and wow, I kind of left a huge scar on this landscape by the tunnel, which I thought went quite well considering the terrible start that I had when I lost all my 2 AMs. Either way, with my Mi-2 being the only unit left on the field from the start push, I decide to retreat this poor guy back up the hill behind. So, a pretty unsuccessful but also successful push into Nicholas. Now, I know I just completely contradicted myself, but in theory, it kind of works, because I took out a CV, which if it was the only one would have left them without Nicholas. I managed to completely destroy a ton of stuff that came in to reinforce, which was my original intention. And furthermore, I took out some extra units, including the Marder Roland 2 and the MD Jupiters in this area, where all of these little explosions are. And you can see all of the dead vehicles that I managed to catch out, including the infantry that went with them. So, big black scars on the landscape, but it's time for another push. So, with all the points that I still had left, I have plenty of room to bring in more and more troops. Now, my Polish deck is specifically infantry based, and the idea is that it's a mobile infantry sort of deck which uses APCs, like the Topaz 2As I've got here with recoilless rifles, or the Scott 2AMs with the ATGMs, plus incredibly good infantry squads. These Topazes have infantry squads which I can no way pronounce, so I'll let you see them once they jump out. But the Spados that I had earlier are also very good, except for they don't have as many troops as these Topazes do. So basically this was inevitably going to be a stronger push, and if I was going to start from the beginning, I would have started with something like this to start off with. Now you can see here I have Scott 2AMs also with the Strela squads in them, and these come in handy throughout the game. Now over here I've also decided to bring in some artillery, and now these gods Nicks or whatever they are, they come with not great HE power. You can see if I just use the information, they only have an accuracy of 2 and a HE power of 8. A HE power of 8 is reasonably powerful for artillery, but unfortunately is not that effective against infantry in cover and also armoured vehicles. Now you need a HE power of nearer 10 or 11 to even start to do damage to armoured vehicles severely. Now obviously if a HE power of 8 shell landed directly on a unit, it's going to blow it up, but unfortunately it doesn't do a great amount of AoE damage. So either way, you can see I'm bringing up all of these APCs to just behind this huge mountain. Now the idea was that I would drop out the troops and they would go for a lovely jog over the mountain straight to the reinforcement point once again and just clog up the reinforcements for their entire team. On the right side though, looks like we have Pool well secured. Looks like Alligator Dawn's done a good job over here, but has just been napalmed, which unfortunately caught out some friendly troops. Well, I would say fortunately caught out some friendly troops. Basically one of the NATO players brought in some Corsairs to napalm, but accidentally caught out some Abrams. Either way, over here I use all of the Topaz 2As I have, which are left over from these Nibiskis, Berettis. They are basically running over the hill to the reinforcement now, and the Topaz 2As, which are left over, are basically running straight towards this CV which I spotted earlier. You can see the Jeep just sitting here waiting to get destroyed. Now these guys, these infantry squads are incredibly effective because there is 60 men in four squads, basically 15 per squad. That is 5 more than most infantry squads, and that gives them a huge advantage over other infantry squads in the area, so they're not going to get killed as easily, and they also have the close range RPGs they need to kill anything that comes in through this reinforcement point. Now you can see a lot of my Topaz 2As here are getting destroyed as they travel up towards this CV. But you can see, luckily, a Scott 2AM does pick it off before the Topazes even get there. But with the Topazes there, I may as well make use of the recoilless rifles, so I make sure that they start hitting on these Chinooks. Also, my Scott 2AMs are taking nice shots with their HGMs to destroy further Chinooks. So, with my infantry now well in place, hell ensues at the reinforcement point. That was a Marder Roland 2 there, just got absolutely annihilated. I managed to capture 4 of these MD Jupiter resupply trucks, and I begin to spread them out around the infantry. I don't want them directly next to them, because if they blew up then they would absolutely annihilate my forces, but either way, they start to attack my infantry. I've also got some ASU 85s on the left here, just to provide some extra fire support. Unfortunately, I had 6, but 3 of them have already been destroyed by this Leopard 2A4. Unfortunately, a very heavy tank. But it looks like General George S. Patton has brought in 4 Abrams, and they are made short work of by my infantry squads. Another 2 also get brought in, but look at that, 105 points apiece. All of this infantry is absolutely annihilating these Abrams. And then, what's next? Oh look, a different person brings in some AH-1E Cobras. They're also dead. And as soon as those second lot of Cobras go down, I capture 4 more Jupiters, which are there to resupply my infantry. So I'm just constantly killing stuff, and yes, okay, we've got some cluster bombs coming in here, which are absolutely non-effective against my infantry, but basically, yeah, that we just completely destroyed them in this particular area. It's just going very, very, very well. Now on the left side here you can see I've got my AA, and they are starting to shoot at some of these twin Hueys on the left here, which are hovering nearby my Scots 2 AMs. But meanwhile, still more stuff's coming in to try and take down my infantry. Now this happens a lot. Somebody's bringing in dragon squads with infantry inside, and every time these dragons appear, all 4 of them die. And look at that. That's 80 points every time they bring in 4 units. And every time they're dying. Instantly. There is a lot of infantry here and a lot of RPGs. But they continuously are more artying me. I have this arty at the back here, which I actually forget about during the duration of this, because I'm too busy staring at this going, oh my god, I'm just killing so much stuff. I could have counter-artied their artillery over here, and that would have been a very, very good idea. But I see that somebody has noticed eventually, and in come the Corsairs, and oh my god, I would not want to be my infantry right now, because there is just a wall of fire that occurs. They basically spread out all of these Corsairs. Noke just brings in so many flames, and my men are just panicking. They're just dying all over the place. All the Jupiters I captured are dead, basically, except from these ones on the left that didn't get caught out. And my infantry is left out in the open, ready to just get absolutely destroyed by one more shot. So, that's the second lot of units gone, and my last captured Jupiters are finished off by cluster bombs. But that is a hell of a wall of flames. Let's just go down to eye level, hide the HUD for a little bit. Look at that, that's just crazy. So much fire and destruction. It's just absolutely mental. Gotta love this game sometimes. Either way, back to more reinforcements. With that attack going so successfully and me doing so much damage to the enemy team, I decide that it's a good idea to do it all over again. Now I do obviously realise that they do have Corsairs and they are going to probably napalm me again, but either way, one thing I did notice while I was playing the game was that the person who was napalming me wasn't the person being caught out by the resupply. The person being caught out by the resupply was this Matt guy who just brought in 4 M60s, and the other guy on the enemy team, General George. So either way, it's probably going to be perfectly fine for me to do it all over again, and that's exactly what I decided to do, this time with my own resupply trucks, which I decided to bring in with the Topaz 2.8. Now obviously I still have these artillery. It's been sitting here the entire time doing nothing. Now that's probably one of my biggest problems with Wargame. I always tend to forget about any units that aren't on the screen. Now if I could recommend anything more, it would be not to forget about any units that aren't on screen. Always have a conscious thing in your mind that you always have more troops than you can see, and you will not forget them. Now, with my reinforcements coming up, it obviously reminds me that I have artillery sitting at the back, so I decide to have a go at artying these Pivads, which are basically units with the Vulcan minigun on them. A very accurate Vulcan minigun. Extremely good for taking down helicopters, but not so good at withstanding against arty. So as soon as that first salvo lands, I decide to fire another. This time catching out a couple of units. You see a direct hit there and takes out one of the Pivads, and then the M60s start to roll away, leaving them all panicked but on the move. Now, the idea of this was just to get them away from the reinforcement point so that I could get this extra infantry that I've just brought up over the other side of the hill and into the same position as I had them before. Basically, what I did the first time was I put one on the left side, one on the right side, and one at the rear. The one at the rear was basically supposed to take the place of any other infantry that got destroyed. So I always had a presence there. Unfortunately, obviously, you saw all of the flames that came. And incoming, we have a Thunderbolt. Now, this Thunderbolt was really quite funny throughout the game. I basically sat there and I was like, oh crap, they've got a Thunderbolt. But what I didn't realise was that he brought it in to kill my recon helicopter. I was a bit like, why did he do that? Because as soon as that happens, he gets hit by an ally AA and then gets shot down by my AA presence on the mountain, which had just been resupplied by these two trucks. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't think 65 points is worth 155 points in Thunderbolt terms. So I was a bit confused at that point. Either way, you can see here a couple of Jaeger squads surprised me, and they actually take out a couple of my resupply trucks earlier on, and then also this Topaz unfortunately gets taken out as well. Either way, my infantry has got into position, so I'm just waiting once again to take out any reinforcements that the enemy decides to bring in. With the pressure up into Elena, I now have my Topaz 2As running up into that sector, and meanwhile on the right we have been pushed out of pool, so it's unlikely that as many reinforcements are going to come through this area. But I was so wrong. 4 Pivads are brought in and 4 Pivads die very, very quickly. You can see this just looks like an absolute junkyard. It's crazy. Look how many dead units there are there. And they don't learn either. They just continuously bring in more and more units get blown up throughout the entire game. At this point, the NATO side has near 14,000 points, and we have 17,000 points, so that's a 3,000 point lead. And while we're here, I'll just leave you to look at the wreck for a little while. So, I'm just waiting now for more reinforcements to come in and top up my points. In the meantime, I've got this recon squad. Basically, this was here just in case the recon chopper got shot down, which it did eventually. And this was dropped off by a Topaz. So that's what that Topaz was doing there, if you were wondering earlier. But either way, I've still got these AAs on the hill with their Strelas, and they are being constantly resupplied by these stars which are sitting at the bottom of this hill here. Luckily, a shot from the Strelas does shoot down 2 of these Dorniers with ATGMs, but over here on the left you can see one guy on my team brings in 4 T-80s and they get absolutely annihilated by air support in that area because he didn't bring in any AA. But the one thing I was really concerned about with that particular push was that he didn't spread them out. Now, if there's anything I can recommend with T-80s is never keep them in groups. Like, honestly, micro them separately, because that is the best way to do things. So, not forgetting my artillery now, I do arty onto this particular forest area as they are peppering my infantry next to the reinforcement points. However, another Corsair comes in and leaves some flames at the reinforcement point. Now, that tells me that they're not going to be using this reinforcement point for a while, because there is a lot of flames in the way. But either way, I have to retreat my infantry from that particular sector, and meanwhile on the right side I'm losing a ton of Malyutkas to these Jaegers, which I forgot about. Unfortunately, these ones are being artied and therefore have a completely inefficient reload time. Meanwhile, on the left, I've got even more Malyutkas coming up, and the idea of these were to basically take out some of the heavy armor that the enemy had in this particular sector. Either way, it was time for my RT to come into its own and actually provide some decent RT support on something it could actually kill. So unfortunately for these Jaegers, it's time for them to take some RT straight in the face. And that is a lot of dead Jaegers. Now unfortunately this Malyutka doesn't last much longer against these two Jaguars and this Leopard 1 sitting over here. But either way, we still have the upper hand and is getting very close to victory. And with these Black Hawks being shot down, that's the win for my team. Now it was a minor defeat. Unfortunately the game has crashed here, so the end screen hasn't come up. There's still some issues with the replays, so please bear that in mind. But hopefully you enjoyed this one. Enjoyed watching my infantry rush up over the mountain to Nicholas, and I hope you learnt something from this. I really enjoyed this strategy and it worked out really well for me, so hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.